Well, good morning and welcome to this video about um, modern biological theories, modern rational choice theory, and modern strain theory. This is going to be a very brief video because I want you to do the readings. The Crim Comics on the modern biological theories is very good, so please read that. And the chapters in the textbook that is the collection of the original source materials. Those are very good as well. I'm just going to give you a very brief summary. Okay, one, modern biological theories. We look at a lot of different areas of biology. So we look at genetics. We look at brain abnormalities. We look at biochemistry. Those are the three biggest areas that we investigate biologically in relationship to crime. But there's a difference than the early biological theories. We don't see biological differences as indicating inferiority like we used to. We see it as having something that needs to be treated, like all human beings get an illness at some point. But they have implications in how we handle individuals who are convicted of crime. For instance, with sexual offenses, there's the idea of increased levels of testosterone. Well, we actually know from comparative studies that there are plenty of people that also have those increased levels of testosterone that never commit sexual offenses. So the increased testosterone, at least by itself, is not a good explanation as to why people commit sexual offenses. However, there is still a push for chemical castration for child molesters. The idea that if we lower their testosterone levels, they won't commit offenses against children. No, that's ludicrous. But because it's based on it's basically a contradiction of what we know from the research, not in conjunction with what we know from the research. Okay, rational choice theories, modern RCT. Cesar Beccaria, when he was proposing his theory, he did not see anyone as really different in their thinking. We all do the rational calculus, and no matter how many times a person commits a crime, it's going to be the same punishment every time. So a person who's been caught doing something 100 times is going to get the same punishment for that crime that another person who's committed the exact same crime but only once, they're going to get the exact same punishment. Modern rational choice theories suggest that we don't all think alike. So when we start to look at how are we going to use someone's reasoning, internal reasoning, to deter them from committing crimes, we have to understand more about the way they think. For instance, they may put a premium on looking good to their friends who have pro-criminal attitudes. So they're going to weigh the risk differently than those of us who might look bad to our friends if we commit a particular crime. So modern rational choice theories allow for that. However, there's another difference. And this is a big one. Cesar Beccaria, he basically would put it this way. He would say, now, wait a second, human beings are thinking individuals. If we just write our laws in such a way, they'll use their rationality and decide not to commit a crime. So that's a positive thing that they're rational. We can use that to help deter them from committing a crime. When modern rational choice theory started to take hold in the 1980s, especially during the presidency of Ronald Reagan, kind of the way it was put, because I was in college and grad school during those years. I remember how it was put. And kind of the way that it was put was, wait a second, criminals think before they commit crime? Well, that's even worse. We need to do something worse to them. We need to strengthen our penalties. We need to make it even more so crime doesn't pay. And they know it. So they wanted to make the sentences harsher, thinking that that would be a deterrent. It's a positive thing to realize that individuals think differently, and so they're going to weigh the risk of certain detection or the risk of swift punishment, and whether or not the punishment is going to far outweigh the pleasure of the crime. And then we have modern strain theories. Agnew really updated this. Agnew is still alive. In fact, on November the 15th, I'm going to Atlanta to a conference where I will probably see and talk to Mr. Agnew. But Agnew took strain theory. Now, the original strain theory was the idea that the strain is that we are unable to achieve the American dream. And when someone is unable to achieve the American dream, there are different levels of response, if you remember that chart. One of those is to become the rebel, is to then start breaking the law to try to achieve the American dream, because I tried it by society standards and it doesn't work. Modern strain theory says that the strain is a failure to achieve positively valued goals. Now, I've covered some of this in previous videos, so I want in more depth, but I wanted this video to be much shorter and put all three of them into one and then let you be done. But that is really the crux of modern strain theory, is that it's not just the failure to achieve the American dream. It can be anything. It can be the failure to achieve a positively valued goal. Now, not too far from where I'm sitting right now in the northern panhandle of West Virginia, if I were to drive in an hour, I would get to the Pittsburgh area, where over 10 years ago, a man walked into a fitness center that was mostly patronized by women, and he just started shooting the women. He positively valued having a woman who would basically think that the sun rose and sat on his rear end. And he was creepy. He creeped women out. It was his fault, but he believed he'd been rejected. He actually did the math, and he'd been rejected by millions of women. His failure to achieve the positively valued goal of finding a woman who would subordinate herself to him was his explanation as to why he went and committed all of those murders. And he then turned the gun on himself and committed suicide, by the way, just so you know. But that his own explanation as to why he committed the murders was a good example of Agnew's modern strain theory. Well, this is Unit 7. Unit 8, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the more left-wing theories. That will be a brief video as well, but we'll see you then.